विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतम् मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यविवः योगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ वर्स् 27। अज्ञानिविदुषा पृष्टः कूटस्थं न प्रबुध्यते न भाति नास्ति कूटस्थः इति बुद्ध्वा वदत्यपि। So from verse 22, Vidyaranya has entered into the first topic, first kind of a viveka called Kutastha Jiva Viveka, which is, we called it as the analysis of a Tvam-pada of a Mahavakya, Tvam-pada Vicharana. And that goes from verse 22 to almost, I think, 108 or something. So, at the end of Vichara, well, we must be able to negate the Jiva as a Mithya, Abhasa Chaitanyam as a Mithya, and Kutastha Chaitanyam, well, or Adhara Chaitanyam as Satyam, and which we call as a Tvam-pada Lakshartha. So Tvam-pada, see, before doing analysis of a Tvam-pada, well, you know what is Tvam-pada. Tvam means you. You know the meaning of you. That is I. You know very well. But that is called Vachyartha. That's just Abhasa Chaitanya. After doing a Tvam-pada analysis, now you know that you are basically a Adhara Chaitanya, not an Abhasa Chaitanya. Then this we are getting now. After analysis of Tvam-pada Vichara, after analysis of Tvam-pada, and what you get is Tvam-pada Lakshartha, because you do something in between. While doing an analysis of a Tvam-pada, you do something, and that is a Lakshana, and that is Bhagatyaga Lakshana. What is negatable, you negate. What is Mithya, you negate. And therefore, now you get a new meaning of Tvam-pada, which is a reality in fact, and that is that you are Adhara Chaitanyam, that is a Satyam, etc. That is called Tvam-pada Lakshartha. And before that, and of course all this samsara, why we are doing all this kind of thing? Because ultimately the samsara which belongs to Abhasa Chaitanyam, since before analysis, well, I was taking myself as Abhasa Chaitanyam, so samsara also was belonging to me, and therefore I was suffering from samsara. And so, in order to remove samsara, in order to remove this dukkham, etc., well, I do this analysis and I realize that I am really not a jiva, I am not a Abhasa Chaitanyam, which is actually mithya, which is negatable, and I have negated also after analysis of Mahavakya, etc. And now I know that I am basically Adhara Chaitanya, free from samsara, free from any kind of dukkha. And so Vidyaranya has diagnosed this problem actually, and he showed the way of doing this analysis also. So Vidyaranya says the fundamental problem is that we don't know this Kutastha Chaitanya. And he calls it as a Mula Vidya. I don't know that I am Kutastha Chaitanya. He is Mula Vidya. And then it has two aspects also. One is a Avarana Shakti, that is called Avrutihi. He says Avrutihi. Avrutihi is a different thing. Avrutihi means repetition. This is Avrutihi, not Avrutihi. Avrutihi, it's a double ta. That means a repetition. And so, but here it is Avrutihi, Avarana Shakti. And the second one is a Vikshepa Shakti. So, Avarana means a concealing version of ignorance, you can say. Concealing aspect or concealing version of ignorance. And Vikshepa is a distorting version. Projecting means a distorting version of ignorance. And of these two, Vidyaranya explained the first version of avidya, Mula Vidya, ignorance, and that is Avarana Shakti. He uses the word Avrutihi. And he says this concealing version of, a concealing version of this ignorance expressed in the form of a particular type of a thought and speech, both. And what is that? Well, it is in the form of a nisheda. It is in the form of a negation. So, nisheda shabda plus nisheda pratyaya is equal to avarana. Negation, the thought in the form of a negation, and the speech or the words of the nature of negation, both together is called avarana. Question is what? But negation of what? Well, negation of experience and existence of a thing. Negation of an experience and existence of a thing. I am putting experience first purposefully, because unless you can't appreciate in form of a non-experience, you won't say it is not existent or existent. And therefore, experience is first. Na bhati, na asti. Not na asti, na bhati. Since it is not there, I don't experience. Don't say that. Since you don't experience, you say it is not existent. Right? Since you don't experience, you say it is not existent. Anything, we have seen that even before also. When you say a given thing is not experienced at all time, in all the places and under any circumstance by anybody, is non-existent. Is non-existent. A given thing is not experienced at all the time, at all the places, under any situation, by anybody. Not experienced by anybody is non-existent. So experience is the first thing. And so that is how, anyway, so negation of an experience and existence of a thing. So vastu sattvam and vastu bhanam, nisheda. Okay, so what is the final definition of avaranam? What is the final definition of a concealing version of a ignorance? Well, a thought and a word which negates existence and experience of a thing is called avarana. A thought and word which negates experience and existence of a thing, vastu, is called avarana. Here in our case, a thing or a vastu is kutastha, chaitanya. So, it is one version of the ignorance, and that is expressed version of a ignorance, right? That is called avarana. Expressed, avidya is expressed in form of a negation. In form of a negation. Negation of what? Existence and experience. Anyway, look at the shloka now, this 27. Ajnanihi kutastham na prabuddhyate. An ignorant person does not know kutastha, and that ignorance is called avidya. This is simple. An ignorant person does not know Kutastha. He is not aware of ignorance of Kutastha. He can't talk about the ignorance of Kutastha. But then there is another clause, Vidusha Prushta. But when wise person, and Prushta means he was asked, Ajnani, ignorant was asked by Vidusha, Vidvan. So that is the third case, Vidusha. Vidvan, Vidvanso, Vidvansaha, Vidvansam, Vidvanso, Vidushaha. Vidusha, Vidurbhyam, Vidubhi, etc., etc. These are the forms. Vidvadbhi, I am sorry. So wise person basically ask that person, well, do you know Kutastha? Oh, then his avidya about Kutastha is expressed. That's called avarana. Avidya in expressed version, right? So, and it is this avidya which is there inside in that person is expressed. So buddhva api, so he buddhva, now it is in a thought form. Avidya is in a thought form. Thought form of what? Negation of experience and existence of Kutastha. In a thought form. And then later, vadati api, if you see the verse number 27, you will find in the second line. See, in verse number 27, the first line shows Mula Vidya of Kutastha. The second line shows Avaranam of Kutastha. Okay? So, na bhati nasti Kutastha iti buddhva vadati api. Buddhva. So, knowing means at mind level, at a thought level. So, na bhati, well, I don't experience Kutastha. He has that thought. Therefore, there is no Kutastha. And then vadati api, that I don't experience Kutastha. Therefore, there is no Kutastha. Right? So, this is called an expressed version of Mula Vidya, ignorance of Kutastha. So, this is this is an explanation that this we saw also yesterday, but I have just summarized it. And then an objection is raised against this conclusion. What is that objection? Verse number 28. Saprakashe kuto vidya tam vina kathamavruti ityadi tarkajalani svanubhutir grasatyasau. See, the person who has a doubt, he says, you can't talk about this avidya and avaranam of Kutastha Chaitanya. So, he says it is illogical to talk about Kutastha avidya and Kutastha avaranam. So, it's a contradiction, he says. Why? He uses a hetu garbha visheshana. He uses a adjective in whose womb there is a reason behind it. For Kutastha he is using an adjective. What is that adjective? Swaprakasha. Swaprakasha Kutastha. So it says here, Swaprakashe kutaha avidya. Swaprakashe kutasthe kutaha avidya. You say that you know, and I also know, this Kutastha is a Swaprakasha, is self-effulgent, is Jyoti Swarupaha, and Avidya, Avaranam are in the form of ignorance means, and that is Aprakasha, Tamorupaha. So, darkness. And so this Avidya, this Avidya, if it has to cover this Kutastha, because you say ignorance of Kutastha and concealing of Kutastha. That's Avaranam. Concealing. So, if it has to conceal, cover, if that Avaranam or Kutastha or Avidya has to cover Kutastha, that Avidya has to be located where? Then, so, well, whatever covers anything should be located on that thing, right? Suppose a lamp is there in the room, right? And it is burning lamp. It is lighted lamp. And well, I want to cover it. That cover, where should I keep? On the other side of the room, other corner of the room, or I should put on that lamp? I should put it on the lamp to cover that. And therefore, definitely if avidya has to cover the kutastha. You said ignorance of kutastha, concealing of kutastha. Then that ignorance has to be there on the kutastha. And then if avidya is then avidya has to be located on kutastha. And if avidya has to be located on kutastha, means avidya and kutastha both should be coexistent. Naturally, right? Avidya and that kutastha has to be coexistent, exist together. So when you talk about this kutastha avidya, ignorance and concealing of this kutastha, well, it is impossible, because ignorance means tamorupa, darkness, aprakasha, non-effulgent, and your kutastha is a self-effulgent, prakasha rupa. So prakasha rupa kutastha and ignorance of that kutastha both has to coexist, because your ignorance and that avarana has to cover that kutastha. So they have to be coexistent. Then how can they coexist? Swaprakasha kutastha and aprakasha avidya, how can they be together? This is a basic question. Basic question against Vedanta. When they could not argue anything, they bring this. How can you talk about ignorance of self-effulgent? Ignorance means aprakasha, tamorupa. Your atma is swaprakasha. Swaprakasha atma and aprakasha ignorance, how can they coexist? You say all the time atma is jnana swarupa, and then ignorance means ajnanam. Ajnanam of atma, how it will be? Ajnanam of a jnana swarupa atma, how it will be? It cannot be there, right? Ajnanam and jnanam how can go together? One of them can remain. Both are inimical to each other. Ajnanam and jnanam. Atma is jnana swarupa. Then how ignorance can be there of that jnana swarupa atma? So it is illogical. Viruddha svabhavatva, naturally. So consciousness and ignorance can't coexist. This is a basic question. So swaprakashe kutasthe kutaha avidya. So this is how it is. And this is aksheparthe kutaha. Okay? Kutaha. How? Means we are expecting some answer. No. It is it is not there. Akshepa means the answer is no. That's all. It is not real question. There are real question means they want an explanation of this. No. He is asking, how can there be a consciousness and ignorance go together? Means they can't go together. That's all. That is called akshepa. Tam vina, without that avidya, katham avruttihi. If avidya itself is not possible of a kutastha, where is the question of a avarana? Avarana is an expressed version of the avidya. So that itself, if avidya itself is not possible, where is the question of avaranam? How can there be a avaranam of a kutastha if avidya itself is not possible? If Swami itself is not there, how can their class will be there? So it is like that. If avidya itself is not possible of kutastha, then where is the question of avaranam of kutastha? Okay, so tam avidyam vina katham avruti syat. Naiva syat. Means it is not possible. Here also katham means it's akshepa. The answer is it is not possible. If avidya itself, avidya of a kutastha itself is not possible, avidya and kutastha both are inimical to each other, and then where is the question of a avaranam of kutastha? So this is how it is. So and they coexist is clearly proved by our experience, right? I am a conscious being and I am ignorant is my own experience. I am a conscious being, self-effulgent. Okay. Then I am ignorant also. The ignorance also will be there with the I, and consciousness also will be with the I. That's my experience, that they coexist. Ignorance and that self-effulgent consciousness coexist. It is there in that I, located in the I, centered on the I. It is my own experience. So well, that is a problem. Okay, so this is a doubt. Answer is what? Well, basically, this is how it is. Nahi drashtehe anupapannam nama. Well, here logic has no right to question something which is evidently there. All the acharyas use this. Nahi drashtehe anupapannam nama. Drashtehe, what is experienced, cannot be questioned by by logic. Anupapannam. Anupapannam means we don't have it's illogical. So, well, logic has no right to question something which is evidently experienced. I am a conscious being and I am ignorant also, or I am experiencing ignorance. Well, they happily coexist. I and ignorance happily coexist. I mean self-effulgent. I have not to say anything. No, but I don't know I am self-effulgent. But you say I am conscious being, okay? I am saying I am conscious. But that consciousness is self-effulgent, okay? Because you know for sure, your I is not dependent on anything, that you know very well. So that I, which is a conscious being, and the ignorance also goes together. They happily coexist. That's your own experience. So he says, ityadi tarka jalani, all varieties of the, logic. So basically network. Jalam means a network. Tarka jalani, network of logic. Varieties of the, varieties of the logic or the network of the logic. Here, so because he says Kutastha is Saprakasha and Avidya is Aprakasha, etc. So they should be located together, and but this is how our experience is. So ityadi tarkajalani grasati asau. Asau swanubhutihi grasati. Asau swanubhutihi. My own experience. Avidya anubhutihi. That I am a conscious being and I am experiencing ignorance, etc. Grasati. It destroys what? Tarka jalani. All these varieties of your tarka. How can aprakasha ignorance, how can tamorupa ignorance and saprakasha is consciousness go together? Well, that kind of they cannot go together. They are inimical to each other. Whatever, whatever covers, that cover has to be there. That cover and a thing which is covered, both has to be together. They coexist. Well, all these things we know. But our own experience is there. I am a conscious being also and I am ignorant also. Well, then both go together and that anubhava cannot be negated by your logic. Nahi drashtehe anupapannam nama. This is how we begin. Now we will answer also further. So verse 29. Svanubhutava vishvase tarkasyapyanavasthitehe katham va tarkikam manyah tattva nishchayam apnuyat. So another interesting observation Vidyaranya makes here is all technical topic actually. So reasoning says, well, they can't coexist. Ignorance and kutastha can't coexist. Prakasha and saprakasha can't coexist naturally because inimical to each other, opposite to each other. So our reasoning says, well, they can't coexist. Anubhava says they can coexist. And so fight between my anubhava, that I am ignorant and I am a conscious being. That's my own experience, not just my experience. It's your experience. It's everybody's experience. Everybody says I am conscious being and I am ignorant. So on one eye, both the things are there. Ignorance also is there, and jnanam. Consciousness means jnanam. Jnanam and ajnanam goes together. Saprakasha and aprakasha both go together. It's everybody's experience. And they cannot be together also because jnanam and ajnanam are opposite. Saprakasha, aprakasha are opposite. And therefore they can't coexist, and therefore I can give a series of logical arguments that they can't coexist. So on one side my own anubhava is there, on other side there is logic is there. So it is a fight between my anubhava, my experience, and Purvapaksha's logic. And so there is a contradiction, and between them which negates, what negates what, let's say that way. Between them, this anubhava and logic, what negates? Either anubhava negates logic, either logic negates anubhava. Only one has to be correct, right? It's like, in a government, there are three power bodies, One is a judiciary, second is an executive, and third is a legislative. Like suppose if I talk here of the India, so judiciary means a court, etc., and who give judgments, etc., of varieties of the cases. It may be a case against the government, maybe a case against the president also. Well, they give independent judgment. It has happened in very recently in the United States also, that Supreme Court has given a ruling against presidents, something, anything, whatever he has done. Anyway, so this is it's an executive, and then judiciary, court, etc. And that's another power body. And then third is this Congress and Senate and all. So legislation. So in our case here in India, it is a parliament, etc. All the three power bodies are there, and in democracy especially. And so sometime you will see that what the government decides, court gives a totally opposite ruling. And if court also says something, then the parliament will say something else. So there will be a tussle between three power bodies. And if it goes beyond a certain limit, there will be a constitutional breakdown. Because who will decide ultimately? What one decides is opposed by other. That is decided and that is opposed by third body. And so this is how it is. So what is right? Who is powerful? Who is powerful? Either logic is powerful. This is a very important thing. Either logic is powerful, either anubhava is powerful. Because both have a different ruling. But, my anubhava says, that I am a conscious being, and I am a jnana swarupa, and I am ignorant also. Then how jnanam ajnanam goes together? I am saprakasha, aprakasha, how can they go together? But that's my experience. Everyone says, I am conscious being. And in some other situation, he says, I am ignorant of them also. So, they go together. That's experience. And logically, they can't coexist. So, these two are very powerful things and opposing each other. And so should we discard our anubhava and with the strength of a logic, or should we discard the logic with the strength of anubhava? We have to do one of that. And so, between this anubhava, that anubhava means pratyaksha. Anubhava means pratyaksha. Like if I say I am right now experiencing you, means what? I am experiencing your form, or I am experiencing your words, whatever. Anubhava is equal to pratyaksha. And so between anubhava and this logic, anumana, right? Between pratyaksha, I am replacing the word. Between anubhava and tarka means between pratyaksha and anumana. What is powerful? Naturally, now you will have an answer. Between them, pratyaksha is a stronger. Pratyaksha or anubhava is a stronger than tarka or anumana. So, but then how will you prove that anumanam is weaker than pratyaksha? You should give a logic to prove that logic is weaker. Okay? So So, and it is simple. I am building so much so that my importance will be retained. So I build as if it's a very big thing, but it is simple thing. It's a very simple thing. See, between Anubhava and this Tarka, between Pratyaksha and Anumana, very simple that Pratyaksha is stronger. We have to give logic for that to prove that logic is weaker. Because simple, Anumanam depends upon Pratyaksha for its existence. Simple. We have certain simple things. We need not go, here and there and round about and round. Tell something very simple but which is really piercing. Anumanam for its existence depends upon Pratyaksha or Anubhava, and therefore if it is dependent upon Pratyaksha for existence, naturally what is self-existent is more powerful. What is dependently existent is less powerful. And therefore, but where we have discussed any time? Yeah, I am giving you reference, you have to go back and see. Okay? In the second chapter of Pancadasi, in verse number 108, we have discussed this thing. Okay. And so basically, and let's go to now example. Anuman. Anuman means inference. Inference of something. We have a stock example. I have a stock example in my pocket. I will bring it out. And you know very well what an example is. You can close eyes and sleep for some time. And that example is of a fire. Inference of fire. Inference of fire, definitely you cannot infer fire without taking into a certain data from Pratyaksha. And what for inferring fire, you will definitely see, first thing, you see smoke. Without seeing smoke, you can't infer fire. So definitely your inference of fire is derived, is dependent upon ultimately of seeing the smoke. Not only that, just seeing smoke I infer fire, no, that's also not correct. You have seen the coexistence of smoke and fire at several places before, called kitchen or called Yagashala, etc. From there, you have arrived at an vyapti, right? You have arrived at a coexistence. Invariable concomitance, they use big thing. It's a coexisting two things. Yatra yatra dhumaha, tatra tatra vanni. Well, so all this data that the smoke and fire coexist has been derived from perception, your anubhava. From there, now here in this particular place called mountain, where you are seeing the smoke and inferring fire. So inference, anumanam, tarka, totally depends upon the data from the perception, perceptual data. And therefore, inference is dependent upon pratyaksha. Anumanam is dependent upon pratyaksha anubhava. Tarka is dependent upon, logic is dependent upon pratyaksha. Okay, so from there now let's derive three things. First thing, that pratyaksha perception is a prabala praman, stronger means of knowledge. And so basically anubhava, dislodge tarka. Second, so Vidyaranya gives another argument also. Suppose without perceptual data, perceptual data collection, if you infer that, then that inference is baseless. And we call it as a guesswork or speculation. And speculation can't be the fact. Without perceptual data, if you infer something, that inference is baseless actually, and that is just a speculation. That's the second thing. Third thing, if I speculate baselessly without any data, then other person also can speculate baselessly without data, and then everyone will be, everyone will be guessing, and then the conclusion will be, so all everybody's conclusion will be different. You won't arrive at a particular conclusion. So there will be a non-finality of, and that's a dosha. That's a non-finality of a conclusion. So he says swa anubhutau avishvase, swanubhutau, avidya anubhutau, or ignorance of kutastha avidya anubhutau. So ignorance of a kutastha, if you reject, experience of a ignorance of a kutastha, because anubhuti, swa anubhuti means experience. So swa means a ignorance of one's own nature, kutastha. So if you experience of ignorance of a kutastha, you reject, right? You experience that you are kutastha, means you are a conscious being, that much. I am a conscious being, that is your own experience, you reject it. But how? By tarka. Tarkasya anavasthitehe, then there will be a non-finality of logic also, because of absence of a pratyaksha. So which one I accept as a fact? Well, definitely opinion etc. can't help me arrive at this fact, just an opinion. And so intellect will have a confusion, and therefore basically, because you arrive at one thing, you arrive logically, you arrive at one thing, other will arrive at other thing. But while seeing the smoke, three people are there, seeing the smoke on the mountain, all the three say that there is a fire. Miss a single conclusion is there, because everyone's inference is based on a certain perceptual data which is common. If it is not there, and if you just infer without taking into account a pratyaksha, without taking into account experience, anubhava, then definitely, because everyone has experienced what? That wherever there is a smoke, there is fire. That is how all the three have a single conclusion, that there is a fire right now here. Seeing the smoke, everyone concludes a one thing. If pratyaksha or anubhava is not taken into account, then everyone's inference, conclusion will be different. And therefore, so this cannot. So without taking into account anubhava, we should not apply just logic. Logic cannot stand against anubhava. Anubhava has to be taken into account. And so any knowledge is a knowledge which is based on a valid source, and valid source is perceptual data. So tarkikam manyah, he says, tarkikam manyah means person takes himself to be a great logician. Manyah, manyamanah, manyate, aham tarkikaha iti manyate, saha tarkikam manyah. Don't think tarkikam anyah. It is not. Tarkikam manyah, manyate. He says, I am a logician, great logician. But what kind of a logician? Which does not take into account anubhava. That kind of a tarkika. That's what he says here. Katham tattva nishchayam apnuyat. How can he arrive at this tattva nishchaya? How can he arrive at conclusion without taking into account that anubhava? So he is really not a logician. Real logician takes into consideration anubhava, because any logic, any anumana is dependent upon pratyaksha, perceptual data. So here katham tattva nishchayam apnuyat means he cannot arrive at a proper conclusion, which we call it as a fact. He cannot arrive at. So here also it is aksheparthi. Katham tattva nishchayam apnuyat. How can he arrive at the truth? How can he arrive at the conclusion based on a fact? Well, answer is he cannot arrive at. If he is Tarkikam Manyah, means if he is a logician, without taking, who does not take into account the Pratyaksha, then he cannot arrive at a conclusion based on a fact. So this is the thing. Now let's go ahead. बुद्ध्यारोहाय तर्कश्चेत् अपेक्षेत तथा सति स्वानुभूत्यनुसारेण तर्क्यतां मा कुतर्क्यताम्. So this is the beauty of Vedanta. So now, as if the anubhava is the main thing, bas, just perception is the main thing. No logic, no logic. If you think like that, then any Vedantika Acharya will create a balance now. So this is all subject matter of basically epistemology. What is a knowledge? What is source of knowledge? What is a valid source of knowledge? What is reasoning? All this matter, where it is discussed, it is all epistemology. So we are just in a process of, we are discussing a certain aspect of epistemology. So Anumanam is based on Anubhava, discarding the Anubhava, and like our Kalidasa, Kalidasa sitting on the branch and cutting the same branch. That Kalidasa is an example. So he knows that if you cut the branch where you are sitting, then definitely you will fall down. He knows it. But still he cuts. So that kind of a thing. Means, basically I know I should not do this, but he does it. So I want to respect Anubhava, but I want to use reasoning also in correct manner. I will give you an example. So I am not able to accept my Anubhava if I don't apply logic. Now I am going to other side. First I said just doing logic will not be sufficient if person does not take into account a perceptual data. If it does not depend upon perception, Anubhava, etc., and he just goes by logic, well, that logic will be a speculation. That's one thing. Okay, now then we will take into account what is experienced only. We will not do any logic. No. Your buddhi, your intellect will not be able to accept the experience unless you apply certain logic. I will give you now example. Like, suppose I have one neighbor and he wants to go to Delhi, and I drop him at a railway station, and I even I went to the platform also, particular platform where the train is standing, and he has a ticket and everything, and he has entered into the train also, train started, etc., and I came back. And the train is bound to, Delhi bound train. And he is going Delhi also. And he sat in the train all started also. Okay, then next morning I saw again in the home. How? He sat in the train, and the train takes at least 24 hours to Delhi, and he has some work and for 2-3 days, and then he will return, etc. And I found next day I found the same person in the neighborhood, in his home, And then this is my experience. I am experiencing person, please understand. I am experiencing person, the person is pratyaksha to me, but my intellect is not able to accept. Could you follow? My intellect is not able to accept unless I go to him, meet him and ask, how come you are here? You are supposed to be in Delhi today. And then he explains me that, see, once train started, and and he had a mobile, and he got a mobile call, phone, and his very, very close friend just passed away in a heart attack, and therefore he has to get down the train. When the train next station came, he got down from the train, and then he got a taxi, etc., and he came back, and then attended funeral, etc., all that. So once he gave the explanation which satisfies my intellect, then then I accept the experience. Otherwise, even though I was experiencing the person in his home, my intellect was not able to accept it. So logic is required. Please understand, logic is required for explanation of an experience, but definitely it is based on, still it is based on the experience. It is based on a experience which is taken into account. If I say, suppose, if I am experiencing the same person, and if I say, well, that is not correct, that person is not there at all, maybe somebody else is there, and even though you are experiencing the same person, but still you keep on denying it and give a logic to your mind, that person cannot be there, this person cannot be there, he should be in Delhi only, etc., etc. So if you discard the very experience of the person, then whatever logic you do in order to explain to your intellect that that person is not there, that won't work. So you have to accept first, yes, the person is there, same person is there in his room, in his home, etc. And therefore, but how can he be there? Then definitely, then you get some logic and certain explanation of that experience, then you are able to accept it. So buddhim arohaya, buddhyarohaya means acceptance at the level of intellect. Buddhim arohaya, acceptance at the level of intellect. Tarkaha apeksheta, for the acceptance, means it is chaturthi, for the acceptance at the intellectual level. Acceptance of what? Acceptance of that experience at the intellectual level. Tarkaha apeksheta chet. Well, if logic is required, then definitely you apply the logic, because basically you have a knowledge that he has left for Delhi, and so and then definitely that person is there the next day he was there in his home, and therefore that experience has to be accounted for, and then definitely you apply logic. Means you get some explanation why he is back to Ahmedabad or something. Then definitely your intellect will definitely accept it. What? Your intellect will accept the anubhava. Please understand that. What is that anubhava? The experience of that person in the home. So that he will be able to accept it. Same way here. I do accept the experience of coexistence of consciousness and ignorance together. But I do experience it. But basically, my intellect is not able to accept this experience. Right? I am a conscious being, I am ignorant, this is my own experience. But both are basically opposite, and my intellect is not able to accept it. How come I am a conscious being, I am a jnanam, as well as I am ajnanam also, ignorant also? How can it be? So, I want to negate that experience by logic. That's not correct. So my intellect is not able to accept this experience, then because they are opposite in nature, then because one is a knowledge, kutastha saprakasha, and avidya is aprakasha, this is a tamo rupa. Definitely. So I have very difficulty in swallowing this experience. Coexistence of both I can't accept, and because they are opposite in nature, and that is my knowledge also. This is also my knowledge. So I am ignorant, I am a conscious being, is also experience, and then I am conscious being means I am jnanam, and I am ajnanam. They are opposite also. That is also my knowledge. Right? Both are opposite, and opposite things can't stand together. That is also my knowledge. Both exist together is also my knowledge. Both can't coexist. That is also my knowledge. And therefore, I am not able to accept that I am a saprakasha and I am ignorant also. This ignorance and kutastha can go together. If you are saprakasha, you are self-effulgent, you are revealing yourself all the time, then how come their ignorance of that saprakasha atma will be there? It is not possible. That is what the other philosophers argue against Vedanta. that ignorance of a self-revealing Atma cannot be there. What is self-revealing, you cannot be ignorant of. What is not revealed, what does not reveal itself, you can be ignorant of it, and then you employ a certain means of knowledge, then it is revealed. But till then you will have ignorance. Unless you operate a means of knowledge, well, a paraprakasha thing, a thing which cannot reveal itself, you will remain ignorant of that. But you are saying you are saprakasha. You are all the time revealing yourself. And well, then how come ignorance of that saprakasha Atma will be there? Kutastha will be there? It's not possible. And therefore, this is all my knowledge. Saprakasha, Atma or Kutastha and ignorance, well, both are located on I. One thing. And Saprakasha Atma and this Ajnanam cannot go together because they are opposite in nature. That is also my knowledge. And therefore, this I apply logic against that. Well, that's not correct. Take into account this experience and try to understand it through logic. And this is a simple logic. I have already told you also, and I am going to ask the question at the end of the session also. So, if you argue like that, well, that basically they are opposite to each other and therefore they can't stand together, etc. Vidyaranya says, well, at least don't reject your anubhava. I have already told you anubhava is prabalam, pratyaksha is a prabalam, and therefore you cannot reject it. If you reject anubhava, if you reject the pratyaksha, if you reject perceptual data and keep doing anumana, inference or tarka, etc., logic, etc., it will be a mere speculation. So take into account, well, don't reject your anubhava, and now you want to use your tarka for explanation of that experience of both together, etc., experience of this anubhava. Well, so he says here, Swanubhuti anusarena tarkyata. Swanubhuti anusarena. So may you use your reasoning. Swa anubhuti anusarena. Anusarena means in keeping with. Swa anubhuti. Well, in keeping with your experience. Swa anubhuti. What is your experience? That I am a conscious being and I am ignorant also. So there's saprakasha kutastha and ajnanam of the kutastha, well, go together. They exist, coexist. That is your experience. Well, definitely to understand that, well, you can apply logic, but don't reject it. So may you use your reasoning. So anubhuti sarena tarkyata. May you use your reasoning. May you apply logic, which is in keeping with this experience of coexistence of kutastha and ajnanam, accepting the experience and try to understand it with the help of logic. So you should do tarka which is experience friendly. That's all it is. Experience friendly, like user friendly computers. And so experience friendly logic. Okay, that's how it is. Ma kutarkyatam. Ma kutarkyatam. You should not negate experience and try to do logic, etc. So this is how it is stated. So basically kutarkyatam and tarkyatam. He is using both. Tarkyatam, kutarkyatam. So there is a difference between a sutarka and kutarka. It means that there is a difference between sutarka. Instead of tarka, I am putting one more word, one more letter. Sutarka. Sushtu tarkaha, sutarka. And this is kutsita tarkaha, kutarka. So basically, I don't know what you are saying. Tarkyatam, ma kutarkyatam, what is that? Sutarka and kutarka, what is all these things? I don't know. Well, nothing to worry about. In Vedanta, both the things are discussed. In fact, in Sadhana Panchakam, Bhashyakara says this, and Shankaracharya ji says that. Vakyarthascha vicharyatam shrutihi shirah pakshah samashriyatam dustarkah tyajyatam shrutimatas tarkonusandhiyatam. May you always resort to anusandhiyatam. May you always resort to shruti mata tarkaha, shruti anukula tarkaha. So what is shruti? What is a pratyaksha and what is shruti? Both are prabala pramana. In both the cases, whatever the data is there from the perception, then depending up, taking into account that data, you do apply logic. And here instead of a pratyaksha, here it is a shruti. Well, and that is also a prabala pramanam. And there also, whatever the data shruti gives you about atma, about swarga, about devatas, about everything, about jivatma, about the gati of the jivatma, about punya papa, whatever data Veda gives you, accept it and then try to understand that how this thing can be accepted, how my buddhi will accept this data, that you can definitely apply logic. So Shrutimatas tarkaha anusandhyetam, it is called sutarkaha. So in keeping with the data, either from the perception, either from the Veda. So sutarka is this, and that he says in verse number 30, what is this sutarkaha? Swanubhuti anusarena tarkyatam mat kutarkyatam. So this is, and let's go to verse number 31 to understand that. Swanubhutira vidyayam avrutau cha pradarshita atah kutastha chaitanyam avirodhiti tarkyatam. So Vidyaranya first says, what is this anubhuti? So then we will give a proper explanation. Anubhava is a coexistence of consciousness and ignorance. And because I am a conscious being, so I have a consciousness and I am ignorant is very, very clear. So that is Anubhava. That is called Anubhuti. And that is how, that is how a person, even though he is a conscious being and ignorant, that is how he goes to the Guru also. And because he knows what he doesn't know, therefore he goes to the Guru. What he knows, that what he knows is a Guru. I should say like that. What he knows, is a Guru. What he knows, what he knows, he doesn't know. That's a Shishya, right? Ajnani Gnani is a Shishya. Ajnana Gnani is a Shishya. Jnana Gnani is a Guru. And therefore, Avidyayam Swanubhuti pradarshita. Avidyayam, this is a Vishay Saptami. Avidya Vishay, with regards to this Avidya, with regards to this Mula Vidya of Kutastha, well, I have a clear experience that, well, I am a Kutastha, I am a conscious being, and also that I am not knowing Kutastha, well, that is very clear also. So I have clearly shown that, we have seen this actually, I have clearly shown you this experience of ignorance, etc. Our own pratyaksha is a pramana. In verse number 27 we have seen, Ajnanihi kutastham na prabudyate. That I don't know this kutastha, because I don't experience kutastha, therefore there is no kutastha, etc., etc. Either at the level of mind, either at the level of speech, well, but that is there. That is one's own experience is there. So avidyayam swanubhutihi, avidya vishay, avidya and avaranam also definitely. He is going to say avrutaucha. So avidya and avrutau, avidya and avaranam, for both, well, there is a one's own experience is very much there. So anubhava is a proof for avaranam also. And nabhati, and that he says in the next line, right, in verse number 27, well, na bhati na asti kutastha iti buddhva vadati api. Well, so he, at the level of mind also, he says, I don't experience kutastha, means there is the ignorance of kutastha, and therefore there is no kutastha, etc. Kutastha nasti, etc. At the level of mind, thought level, as well as at the level of words. Well, that is one's own experience. So basically, Anubhava is a proof for Avaranam also, Anubhava is proof for Avidya also. So Avidya and Kutastha coexist is very clear. Because Kutastha is not somewhere else. I am Kutastha, that is what Shastra says. Or that is what Jnani says. And so, do you know Kutastha as yourself, etc. If somebody asks, well, I say, I don't know. Because I don't experience, etc. So therefore, Avidya is also there of Kutastha, and he is a Kutastha. Both go together. So both go together. So, well, that is my own experience, that ignorance of Kutastha and Kutastha both go together. I am Jnana Sarupaha and I am Ajnani also. goes together. Jnanam and Ajnanam coexist is everybody's experience. And you require explanation for this experience, that how can they coexist. Jnanam and Ajnanam cannot coexist because their natures are opposite. So you require an explanation for acceptance of coexistence of Kutastha and Ajnanam of Kutastha. And we say they are not inimical to each other. That's all. They are not inimical to each other. Vedanta has certain things which you should keep in the mind. Certain things has to be, with the hammer and everything. They are not inimical. Jnanam, Ajnanam, in case of Kutastha and the ignorance of Kutastha, they are not inimical to each other. Ignorance and knowledge, they are not opposed to each other. That much common sense you don't have, Swami. No, but this Jnanam and Ajnanam, they are not inimical to each other. They can coexist. How can they coexist? Answer is expected from you. Okay? Answer is expected from you. I have several times told you, and so please think over and give the answer tomorrow. Tomorrow, yes, correct. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.